Lieutenant Riva of the Tharkus species strode through the gleaming corridors of Galactic Union headquarters, her mind buzzing with anticipation. Today was supposed to mark the start of her prestigious assignment. She had spent years climbing the ranks, excelling in strategy simulations and interstellar navigation exercises. She expected a position commanding a diplomatic mission, or perhaps exploring a new star system. Her chest swelled with pride as she imagined herself at the helm of a cutting-edge vessel, representing the Tharkus species among the galaxy's elite. Instead, when she reached the central command hall, the announcement left her in stunned silence. She had been assigned to work with humans. The hall was vast, filled with alien officers from species she had only studied in textbooks. Some had scales, some fur, some eyes that could see infrared or ultraviolet light. The buzz of conversation fell silent as Commander Varen, a tall, crystalline being whose body reflected the ambient light like a prism, stepped forward. "Lieutenant Riva," Varen said in a voice that resonated like a chime, "your next assignment will be with humans." A ripple of quiet murmurs passed through the hall. Riva's antennae twitched nervously. She had read the reports. Humans were considered unpredictable, emotional, and reckless. Many species avoided them whenever possible. Some officers whispered that a single human could unintentionally destroy a starship yet somehow survive. "Work with humans?" Riva asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. "Is this a mistake?" Viren's faceted eyes gleamed. "No mistake. This is exactly why you were chosen. You will learn from them, and the galaxy will benefit from that knowledge. Report to the vessel Resolute Dawn immediately. Your partner, Captain Mason Hale, will be aboard." Riva swallowed hard. She had studied humans in simulations, read every report, and prepared for their peculiar behaviors. But nothing could prepare her for the reality. When Riva arrived at the docking bay, the vessel awaited her like a sleeping predator. The Resolute Dawn was sleek, silver, and surprisingly nimble for a research ship. Its engines pulsed faintly, a heartbeat of technology ready to spring into action. A human stepped forward to greet her. He was tall, with short dark hair and eyes that seemed to twinkle with energy. He wore a simple uniform, far less formal than the elaborate garments worn by other Union officers. He smiled warmly. "You must be Lieutenant Riva," he said. "I'm Mason, just Mason," Riva blinked. She had expected formal titles, salutes, and rigid etiquette. Instead, he offered a casual handshake and a grin that radiated confidence and a hint of mischief. "Captain Mason Hale," she said, correcting him. "Yeah, that's me. But around here, Mason is fine. Titles make things boring." Riva hesitated but followed his lead, cautiously shaking his hand. She was used to hierarchy, structure, and rules. Mason seemed to thrive in disorder. That thought made her uneasy. Their first mission was not ceremonial. The Resolute Dawn was dispatched to investigate strange energy readings near a dying star in a distant system. Union Command wanted to understand the anomaly before it became a hazard. As they approached the system, Riva observed Mason's approach to piloting. He bypassed several standard safety protocols, adjusting shields and thrusters in ways that seemed reckless. She bristled. "Mason," she said sharply, "we must maintain standard distance from the star. The radiation levels are extreme." "Following protocol is critical," Mason chuckled. "Protocols are good for the predictable, Lieutenant." "The universe isn't predictable. Watch this." With a series of rapid maneuvers, he nudged the ship closer to the star than Riva thought possible. Alarms beeped insistently, lights flashing red. Riva's claws tightened around the railing. Then suddenly the ship shook violently as a flare erupted from the star. Mason laughed. "See, predictable." Riva stared in disbelief. They should have been vaporized. Yet somehow the humans' instincts had guided them to safety. Over the next few hours, Riva began to notice patterns. Humans did not follow logic the way other species did. They reacted, adapted, and improvised in ways that defied conventional calculation. Mason's improvisation saved them from multiple hazards: a plasma surge from a nearby moon, a rogue asteroid passing too close, and a sudden collapse in the star's corona. Each time, Riva felt a mixture of shock and admiration. She had been trained to follow strict rules, simulations, and probabilities. Humans seemed to ignore them entirely, and yet succeed. During a brief respite, Riva and Mason shared a meal in the ship's mess hall. Humans ate with gusto, talking and laughing as they consumed food Riva had never tasted. She observed his mannerisms, how he smiled at the simplest joke, how he engaged everyone around him with warmth and energy. "You're not like other aliens I've met," Mason said, noticing her curiosity. "Most species are, I don't know, serious. You think too much about rules. You'll learn. Humans make mistakes, yes, but we also make miracles happen." Riva blinked. "Miracles?" Mason grinned. "Call it human instinct. Call it luck. Call it madness. Works every time." Riva wasn't sure whether to be impressed or alarmed. She had never met a being so utterly fearless. The respite was brief. Soon the Resolute Dawn received an urgent message. A colony on the edge of Union space had sent a distress call. Rogue AI drones had attacked, and local defenses were failing. Union reinforcements were hours away. Mason glanced at the message, then at Riva. "Looks like we get to test our miracle-making skills early." Riva felt a surge of tension. Standard procedure dictated they wait for reinforcements. The Union never risked ships unnecessarily. Mason's eyes gleamed. By the time reinforcements arrived, there might not be anyone left to save. "I vote we go now." Riva opened her mouth to protest but hesitated. She had seen what he could do. Somehow this human had survived every impossible hazard, turned near disasters into victories, and even made her laugh along the way. Maybe there was truth in his reckless confidence. She nodded. "Very well, Captain." "Mason." Mason's grin widened. "Excellent. Now we're partners in chaos." The Resolute Dawn raced through the void toward the besieged colony. Warning signals flashed on every console, and Riva's mind was a whirlwind of calculations. Union protocol dictated that they should hold position and await reinforcements. But Mason Hale ignored the order with a calm certainty that unnerved her. "By the time reinforcements get here," Mason said, leaning casually against the command console, "there might not be anyone left to save. We don't wait. We act." Riva's antennae twitched nervously. "Captain, we could be court-martialed for disobeying direct orders." Mason grinned. "And we could save hundreds of lives by doing exactly that. I call it calculated heroism." She opened her mouth to argue, but then caught a glimpse of the colony on the sensors. Fires burned across the surface. Defensive turrets lay in ruins, and drones swarmed the streets with relentless efficiency. Riva felt the sharp twist of responsibility in her chest. Protocols would not save these people in time. Humans, at least this human, would. "Very well," she said finally. "We act, but we follow safety parameters as closely as possible." Mason laughed softly. "Good enough. Come on, Lieutenant. This is where humans shine." The ship descended through the colony's atmosphere. Smoke and ash blurred the viewports, and automated defenses fired at the intruding vessel. Mason twisted the controls, sending the Resolute Dawn in a dance that made Riva's stomach lurch. Every maneuver was so daring, so improbable, that alarms screamed constantly. She had no idea how they were not already shredded into pieces. "Trust me," Mason said, noticing her pale expression. "Don't think. Just do what I do." Riva followed, mirroring his instinctive adjustments. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and against all odds, successful. The drones could not predict their movements, and many collided with each other or the crumbling structures instead of the ship. They reached the colony's central hub, where the AI controlling the drones operated from. Mason turned to Riva with a gleam in his eyes. "Ready for the boarding?" he asked. Riva hesitated. Union rules considered boarding an active combat zone suicidal. But Mason's determination was infectious. Somehow she found herself nodding. "Ready." They deployed in armored pods, dropping into the chaos of the colony streets. Smoke stung Riva's eyes. Heat radiated from fires, and the hum of the drones filled the air with menace. Mason moved with uncanny precision, ducking between obstacles, disabling drones with a combination of hand-to-hand skill and improvised tools. Riva followed, her training guiding her actions. Where she was precise and methodical, Mason was unpredictable and instinctive. Together they formed a balance she had never imagined possible. At one point, a drone lunged at Riva from above. Mason grabbed her just in time, slamming it into the ground. Sparks flew as the drone short-circuited. Riva's pulse raced. She had been close to death, yet she realized she felt more alive than ever. "See?" Mason said, brushing soot from his uniform. "Humans improvise. Humans survive." Riva nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Humans take risks, and we make them count," he replied. They pressed deeper into the colony, heading for the AI core. The streets were twisted, buildings half collapsed, and rogue drones attacked without pause. Riva noticed patterns in their behavior, small, predictable repetitions that Mason seemed to detect instinctively. While she relied on calculations and strategy, Mason relied on instinct and courage, reacting faster than she could process. When a group of drones trapped them in a narrow corridor, Mason made a split-second decision. He activated the pod's emergency propulsion, launching them through a wall into an adjacent building. Riva barely had time to catch her breath before he was already scanning the next obstacle. "You're insane," she said, heart hammering. "And you're alive," Mason replied with a grin. Insanity and survival are not mutually exclusive. Riva realized then that humans thrived where others would hesitate. Their courage was not absence of fear, it was action despite it. Finally, they reached the AI core. The massive structure pulsed with energy, wires and circuits intertwining like a mechanical heart. The drones swarmed relentlessly, but Mason and Riva pressed on, taking down every threat in their path. Mason glanced at Riva. "You ready to finish this?" She nodded, fingers poised over her tools. Union protocol would have her input precise shutdown codes. Mason, however, had other plans. He yanked out conduits, rerouted power lines, and short-circuited systems in a way that defied her understanding. Sparks flew. Alarms screamed, and the AI's glowing eye flickered in confusion. Riva worked alongside him, adapting her methods to his improvisation. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and terrifying, but it worked. The AI core began to collapse. "Step back," Mason shouted. The floor beneath them shuddered. They dove out of the control chamber as the core exploded, sending a wave of energy that shook the building. Dust and debris filled the air. Hours later, rescue teams found them trapped under rubble, but alive. The colony had survived, though much of it lay in ruins. Riva felt her body ache in ways she had never experienced. Every muscle was sore, every breath was heavy, but she felt exhilarated. She had faced impossible danger and lived thanks to a human's courage and ingenuity. Mason brushed dust from his uniform and grinned. "Told you humans make miracles happen." Riva smiled faintly, the tension of the day easing. "Perhaps you are not entirely reckless," Mason laughed, "and you're not entirely stiff." Progress. Back at Galactic Union headquarters, Riva filed her report. She struggled to capture the truth in words. Humans were unpredictable. They defied protocol. They seemed to survive impossible situations through instinct, courage, and ingenuity. Logic alone could not explain their successes. She finally wrote, "Humans are not to be measured by strict logic. They succeed where other species fail. They act when others hesitate, improvise when others plan, and endure when others flee. Their methods are unconventional, their results extraordinary. I recommend all officers be assigned to work with humans to understand their unique approach. The galaxy benefits from their courage, adaptability, and determination." Commander Varen reviewed her report, silent at first. Then slowly he nodded. "Lieutenant Riva," he said, "it appears you have learned the most important lesson. Humans are not to be feared for their recklessness, but respected for their strength. They change every mission they touch, and in many ways they change the galaxy." Riva felt a mixture of pride and relief. She had survived impossible danger, learned from a human, and discovered something extraordinary. Humans were not just another species. They were a force of nature. Unpredictable yet unstoppable. A few days later, Riva returned to the Resolute Dawn. Mason leaned casually against the command console, a small smile playing on his lips. "You survived your first mission with a human," he said. "Congratulations. You're officially contagious." Riva raised an eyebrow. "Contagious?" Mason nodded. "You caught it. The human instinct to act, adapt, survive. Once it hits, there's no going back." Riva smiled. "Then I suppose I am infected." He laughed, clapping her lightly on the shoulder. "Good, now you're ready for anything. The galaxy is full of chaos, and humans, well, we thrive on it." As the Resolute Dawn prepared for its next assignment, Riva gazed out at the stars. Endless, vast, and full of danger. She no longer feared them. She had learned the first lesson of humans. In a universe dominated by rules and logic, it was the unpredictable, the bold, and the determined who truly changed the course of events. And now, she would follow them into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges the galaxy had to offer. Mason looked at her, a spark of mischief in his eyes. Ready for your next miracle? Riva's smile widened. Absolutely. The stars stretched before them, infinite and bright. And for the first time in her career, Lieutenant Riva felt she was exactly where she belonged,